What is up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? You've come to me for the cold hard truth, and I'm here to deliver it to you. Today I'm going to talk about detailed steps that I took recently to investigate the idea of creating a new dating app. And I wrote an article about this, and I'll put a copy of it also in the comments below in the video. But essentially there's 4 non-negotiables that I have in every new business that I would ever consider starting going forward. They are in this order. I have to have extreme, deep, burning passion for the project. Personally myself, I've been single for a while, so I've been using these online dating sites, and my experience has been fairly terrible. The ROI is really, really bad. So for the amount of time you put into the work, you get a really bad return on that investment. The next important non-negotiable that I have, number 2, is it has to be some kind of subscription-based revenue model. It's great when you can make a one-time sale and you've made maybe a big payout on that, but I much rather prefer having a customer for a longer period of time. One of my most successful businesses, we usually had a relationship with clients for anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and they would pay us monthly. And what that does is that essentially creates a customer for life. When you get into the business at the start of the month, you know exactly what you have in recurring revenue. You know what your return rate is if there's any problems with NSFs for debits on bank accounts or credit cards. It's a very consistent and easier business to run than always searching for, eating what you kill. Number 3 in my non-negotiable is having as low a staff count as possible. When you have employees, you've got source deductions, taxes, you've got all kinds of hoops that the government will make you jump through to satisfy the need to have those employees. And that doesn't even bring into consideration things like labor board issues and wrongful dismissals. Even if they're a shitty employee and you have to get rid of them, these things will always come up. Never mind, who's banging who in the office. So I always want to have as few employees as possible working for me on any given project that I'm launching. It's just simpler that way and easier. If you can automate it with a subscription-based type of business that I have a lot of passion for, it's great. And number 4 is it has to have a big upside. Now, the thing with online dating and dating apps is I know from experience, from what I've learned, that online dating sites can have a huge upside on the exit. Marcus, who sold Plenty of Fish recently, exited for around $550 million. So is there a big upside? Yeah, there's a huge upside when it comes to online dating apps. Okay, so let's talk about now the steps that I had to explore to discover whether or not this business model would work with my core value system, my non-negotiables, if you will. So the first thing that I did was I started hammering away on Google and Alexa.com. Y'all know what Google is. Alexa.com, you can copy and paste in the URL for any website, and it'll give you an idea of what sort of traffic that website gets. That's a good indicator that there's a market there, or that it's a big enough market that you might want to get into it. So what I learned about online dating apps and websites is it's about a $2 billion a year business in North America. And while that might sound like a big number, it's not huge. The weight loss industry, the six-pack abs, the reduced belly fat, that nutraceutical type of industry has a multiple that's about 30 times bigger than the online dating. So there's really a lot more people that are looking to lose weight and be sexy than there are people looking to try to find love. So it's not a huge industry, but it's still a $2 billion a year industry. So that was enough for me to keep moving forward. So once I did that, I started looking for who was the big player in the space that I wanted to enter. Now I know that if you're going to enter a new space, you need to be at least 2 times better than what's existing out there. My model for the dating app would have consisted of video production components. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but introducing video into dating, I think the time's come. Most mobile phones have at least a 2 to 5 megapixel front-facing camera. There's sufficient technology that all the components there that this should work. So I felt comfortable that what I had was strong enough. Now what I did next was I went to Quora. Quora.com is a Q&A type of website, and I wanted to make sure that there were other people suffering with the same sort of pain point that I was, to see if it was worth my while to continue moving forward. So I posted questions like, what is the biggest challenge that you're suffering on online dating sites and apps like Tinder and Bumble, because I wanted to do more of an app type of a app-based sort of dating app. and I did the same thing with men. And it was fairly consistent. Everybody said almost the exact same thing. The return on investment is shit. There's a lot of catfishing. People pretend to be other people. Things like that. There's a lot of lag time, between, the messages going out and the responses and the blah, blah, blah chit chat. And you could go and meet somebody that has a horrible voice, or an annoying voice if you're a guy, or maybe the dude sounds like Pee Wee Herman if you're a woman. So I figured that there was enough of a problem there that I could solve it with video, because you can always communicate with video and solve those problems pretty quickly. Moving forward, when I found the biggest player in the industry, I reached out to them. The biggest player in the video dating app space wasn't huge by any stretch of the imagination. They had a big website. I knew that they had raised about $105,000 in venture capital to build the app out and advertise it. I also knew what their app downloads were, because it shows in the iOS store and the Android app store. It tells you what the number of downloads are, versus the other big players out there like Match and Plenty of Fish and things like that. So I had a good idea that they were definitely the biggest player. I reached out to the owner of the company and I said to him that I had been approached by a couple of kids in the app development space that were looking for investment capital for a video-based dating app, and did he have a few moments to talk. About a week later I got a response and he was interested. So I had a conversation with him for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes or so, and I learned a lot there. What I'd learned from the dating app space, which I didn't know before, was that your acquisition costs are reasonably high. So you've got to have a pool of people for an online dating app to work. It's like going to a nightclub and there's nobody there. It's the same sort of thing. You can go and build an app that might be functional and work really well, but if there's nobody using it, it's completely pointless. So I learned from that point that it costs about anywhere from 75 cents to maybe $2 to acquire a user for the app. So if you wanted, let's say, 1 million or 2 million users in a given city to download and use your app, it could cost you anywhere from $1 to $3 million, depending on what your cost per acquisition is. So there's a huge startup capital required to start up this app. It's not something that you could bootstrap and do very quickly and easily. It's something that's going to require some investment. So I knew from that point going forward, this is something that's going to need a shitload of money. So does it still have the app's upside? Does it still meet all of my non-negotiables? It's starting to look like yes, but there's some downsides to it, because I can't bootstrap it and I can't get into this sort of business with very limited startup capital. Now, there's two things that I wasn't sure about at this time. It looked like a subscription-based revenue model. People would still keep coming back and using it on a regular basis. But the question I had in my mind is, how long are people actually single for? Like, how long do they use these dating apps and sites before they get fed up with it and they pack it in and they leave and they just start going out with their friends or going to nightclubs or whatever it might be? And the other thing that I wasn't sure of is, how many people do you need to run these sorts of things? I knew that I had an app developer. I knew what the cost per acquisition was. I knew who the big player in the space was. I felt by asking questions on Quora that I knew that there was definitely a problem there that I thought I could solve with a video-based solution. And I also knew by looking at the largest player in the space, in the video dating app world, that their app sucked, and I could have done a much better job based on my experience after downloading it and using it. So I went looking around to find somebody that actually owned a relatively large, successful dating app company. The guy that I talked to that owned the dating app company really had only about 5 or 6 employees, and none of them were on payroll, so I knew that he was making no money whatsoever, and he had no money whatsoever to monetize and actually advertise the app, because he started asking me for investment money, telling me that it was the next greatest thing since sliced bread. So at this point, I went around looking to find somebody that had some knowledge and know-how. Now, thankfully, I'm a member of a few different organizations where I have exposure to different entrepreneurs in different fields. I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Oregon Toronto. I'm actually heading downtown Toronto right now to see the former CEO of Starbucks speak, Starbucks Canada. So I reached out to my network. Now, I've talked about your network being your net worth before. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out on my channel. But I found somebody that owned a dating company that had been around for about 10 years. And I learned that he had 42 employees. So reached out to him, booked a call. He was happy enough to talk to me for an hour over Skype. The problem that I had learned is there's a requirement for a lot of staff and a lot of maintenance and a lot of upkeep. That was the first thing that I learned. So it no longer agreed with having a very low head count. I thought that dating apps were something that you could produce, put out, keep releasing updates and there was not a lot of work. But for something like 30 to 35,000 users, and usually a much smaller percentage of those, it sounds like about 20 to 30% of them are actually paying users, you need a shitload of people to run that business. There's a lot of hands-on work that needs to be dealt with, a lot of app development work, a lot of bugs and things that you need to fix. Now, the other thing that I found that was very interesting to me, which blew the subscription model out of the water that I thought that it was, is that the average lifetime relationship with a dating app company and their client is only about 2.1 months. So in my prior businesses where I might have had a client for 36 to 48 months, you no longer have a client for a long period of time. You're basically eating what you kill. So you have a client that comes on board, they subscribe and pay for a few months, and then they bounce and they leave. Now, that might be solved with a much better application, you never know. I started looking on Kickstarter and Indiegogo because I wanted to see, what kind of appetite people have for something new and better. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that came up. I found a whole bunch of new and improved dating app companies, and they really weren't much different. They were all two-dimensional based, still based on photography, not on video. They had all raised some venture capital and had things going for them, but nothing that was really sticky and significant that looked like that it was easy for it to be successful. So it didn't look like there was a track record of success. What it looked like was there was a track record of destruction. A lot of people had lost a shitload of money and time building these apps in a $2 billion a year industry that's really not that big, where the customers only subscribe for a very short period of time and you need a lot of employees to run the business. All of those things combined on their own led me to decide that it wasn't for me. So I beat it with a stick and I killed it and I buried it 6 feet under. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That was my thinking process and what I had learned exploring the concept of maybe solving my own problem of trying to make a better dating application. The end result of it was I didn't feel like it was worth my time, resources, and money to go and throw at something like that, so I just walked away from it. Now, I only spent a few weeks on it, trying to learn the ins and outs of an industry that I had no experience in whatsoever. I'm a complete techno dunce. I have no idea how to build or write code, but I know people that do. So it wasn't going to be an impossible task, but I didn't know enough about the industry to go and jump right into it. So I'd encourage you to take a look at the steps that I had followed and try to find a reasonable way to discover whether or not a app or a business or a service or a product that you're looking to develop is worth your while. I'd love to hear your comments below in the video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Give it a thumbs up if you love the video. Sharing is caring, guys. If you want to hear or learn anything new, ask me a question below. Thanks for checking out the video today. Have an awesome one. Peace!